right on cue with the NBA playoffs. I want to focus a little individually on one of the marquee games from last night, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies ultimately won 111 to 109 thanks to a game-winning layup by Ja Morant to lead the Grizzlies to a 3-2 series lead in the best-of-7 first-round Western Conference matchup. So, first of all, by the way, Anthony Edwards, I love Anthony Edwards. I'm going to talk about him. But you can't go for that gamble. You can't go for the steal. It's the wrong gamble. It's the poor choice at that moment in the game. You have to stay in front of Morant. He tries to pick it off high side, and Morant's got a driving lane to the basket with 3.5 seconds left, makes an acrobatic finish, and they obviously win the game. It almost reminded me of the game-winning layup LeBron James made in 2013 against the Indiana Pacers in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals in 2013. Paul George was defending. They weren't quite ready to defend. Paul George kind of was attempting at a steal. LeBron made a quick catch and turned towards the basket, and he laid it up in with his left hand, and that was Game 1 of that series. But overall, this is an incredible series. This is how I figured it would go. And it's an incredible series because it features two of the youngest and brightest NBA stars. And normally you don't see that. Normally you don't see in the first round both the higher seed and the lower seeded teams, both youthful in their experience, in their maturity, in their personnel. You normally don't get that. So this is a true treat as a basketball fan to get this series, and it's playing out exactly how I expected it to play out. You got Ja Morant, who I absolutely love. He's a scintillating basketball player. You have Anthony Edwards, who's emerging before our very eyes. Karl Anthony Towns, of course, just hasn't gotten enough reps in the postseason, but when he's on, he's big time. I'm going to touch on him in a moment. But Ja Morant, this is the thing that I love about Ja Morant. Obviously, he dropped 30 points, 13 rebounds, 9 assists, a near triple-double. He had 18 points in the fourth quarter, which was a franchise playoff high. It's the most points scored in the fourth quarter by a Memphis Grizzly in their playoff history, just for starters. But what I absolutely love about Ja Morant is not just the moxie, not just the brashness that he plays with. I love the pace that he plays with, because he plays with such control, yet he maintains that same ferocity. He uses that filthy handle to create for himself, to drive to the basket, to open up lanes, to facilitate an extremely high level. And what's amazing to me is he maintains that same aggressive and attacking mentality as others that came before him, but he plays with a certain sense of control and a little bit more poise. I oftentimes call him the modern day Derrick Rose, because he attacks the rim with the same conviction and the same aggressiveness and the same explosion, but he's got more than one gear. Derrick Rose typically had one gear. That's it. With Ja Morant, he can probe with ease. He is a tremendously fluid basketball player, just understands timing, understands pace, changing that up, changing speeds of direction. And I just love the way that he controls games when he's on. And we've been seeing that. We've been seeing that in a couple of these games down the stretch. And it's important to highlight those younger guys being able to demonstrate that skill, because it's a rarity. It really is. However, this series also illuminates everything that's infuriating about this series, about two younger teams, about youthful inexperience, about poor shot selection, ill-timed mistakes, just boneheaded decision-making. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they have continually shot themselves in the foot. No pun intended. They've shot themselves in the foot. They've also shot themselves out of games because of some of these poor decision makings down the stretch. Because the Minnesota Timberwolves committed 23 turnovers last night. That was the second most turnovers committed by the Timberwolves in their postseason history. And to me, when I watch Minnesota play, Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards are clearly the two best guys on the team. And it is absolutely vexing to me. And I was apoplectic to see for the second time in the series when they were up by double digits in the fourth quarter and Memphis was starting to surge back for the second time. We saw it in game 3, and now we saw it last night. That the guy that Minnesota is turning to create and to take big shots as trying to be the run stopper for the Timberwolves is Patrick Beverley. And I love Patrick Beverley. He is a pest defensively. He's just a gnat that you can't get out of your hair. And I love the leadership that he brings. I love the defensive tenacity that he plays with. But why in the hell is Patrick Beverley the guy taking shots down the stretch of games? You've got Karl Anthony Towns, who is rolling, 28 points for him. Now, he was making a lot of his threes. Personally, I'd like to see him operate a little bit closer to the basket. But regardless, he was rolling with 28. You've got Anthony Edwards, who is an emerging superstar. Now, right now, he's not assertive enough. He doesn't demand the basketball enough, which is something we see with younger basketball players like LaMelo Ball. He just doesn't demand the ball enough down the stretch. But the clutch shot-making ability, we saw that again on display last night. The clutch three in the corner with one to tie it at 109. I just don't understand why down the stretch of games, Chris Finch isn't putting the ball in Karl Anthony Towns or Anthony Edwards' hands. Those two guys should touch the ball on every single possession down the stretch. Doesn't mean they have to shoot it every time, but it should be in their hands. And the fact that Patrick Beverley is the one running pick and roll with Cat down the stretch, and Beverley is the one making the decisions, and Beverley is trying to take on Ja Morant because he sees him as a porous defender, it just mind boggles me why Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards aren't the guys making those decisions. I just don't get it. I love the beef between Beverley and Ja. Beverley makes a shot. He gestures his hand down saying, "You're too small." Ja responds the same way. So neither one of those guys were going to back down from one another. But it just mind boggles me that Chris Finch, who I think's done a nice job, why he doesn't say, "Hey, Patrick, put the ball in the hands of Anthony Edwards and just get out the way." It's amazing to me. But with the T-Wolves, the problem is that they take just irrational shots at times, just really illogical shots, quick, they don't get into good offensive sets down the stretch often. And that's what you would expect to see with different younger teams. They coughed it up way too much. And D'Angelo Russell is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You really don't know which version of him you're going to get. He's averaging 13 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists for the series. 7 assists are good. He's shooting 31% from the floor for the series. And he has to be that X factor. He's got to be that difference maker. And they just didn't get enough production out of him down the stretch. But again, give credit to Memphis because the matter of fact, at the end of the day, they're up 3-2. But if you are a staunch NBA observer and you actually watch those games, really the Timberwolves should be leading this series, if not already have won this series. But their inexperience has allowed Memphis to come back. Memphis has demonstrated a lot more poise. They've got a lot more depth. And obviously I mentioned Ja. Desmond Bane is stroking it. He's a football rugby player playing basketball. There's no need to gloss over it. That guy should be wearing shoulder pads. And Dylan Brooks is not scared of anyone. He's playing with a lot of confidence. Obviously, I mentioned Bane. You got the Zamboni and Kyle Anderson, who I love, the UCLA guy. And I can go down the list. Jaren Jackson is kind of like a Bam Adebayo type. He can stretch the floor, an elite defensive player. If he just doesn't get into foul trouble, that's the problem with he and Cat. If both of those guys can avoid foul trouble, they can be extremely productive. Tyus Jones doesn't turn the ball over. And Memphis, again, they've executed a little bit better down the stretch of games. But just some poor decision making, really by both sides, but especially by Minnesota is what's cost them in the series. And I predicted that this would be a dogfight. I didn't necessarily say that Memphis was going to lose, but when the series was tied, when they lost the first game, I was worried about Memphis because this is not a team you're just going to put away, put down really quickly. And nothing so far has proven to disprove that. So I can't wait for the rest of the series. And again, it's refreshing to see two young superstars playing in the first round of the postseason. You don't really get to see it too much on both sides. So that's extremely pleasant to see. But I just found myself thinking for Minnesota, I love Patrick Beverly, but God, put the ball in Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns' game. Make the action between those two guys. I just don't. Hey, credit though to Memphis and Ja. Nice job by them.